What's shaking? Hey, I'm Rick Jordan, and today we're going all in.
So
yeah, when I was looking at that, I'm like, that'd be crazy. It's like, let's go. You just started in practice. How's it going? No, I'm kidding.
No, I wish. Nope, I'm 30 years older than that now.
Oh, man. No, that's even that. I see. Now that I don't believe, dude. 30 years older than that. Look at you. Seriously.
Thank you.
That means, I mean, you're older than me. That means you're what, 51?
I'm 52.
52. Dang. Yeah, I'm 45, bro. And I mean, I don't have those looks that you going. I don't think.
You're doing good for 45.
Thanks. Thanks, brother. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, but I mean, we're recording already. We're going. So that's just how this goes. It's like
that's great.
It's just a conversation, brother. Yeah, it's awesome, man. So it's a pleasure to meet you. I mean, I saw seriously. It's Darshan Shah is your full name, right?
Right.
And dude, how in the world? Like, I mean, I'm sure you wanted to be a doctor forever, but how in the world, brother? Did you get through everything by the age of 21? And was that in the U.S. when that happened?
Yeah, no, that was in the U.S. So, it's a lot of luck more than anything, I would say. So my family moved around a lot when I was a kid. And it turned out every previous school I went to, even grade school, high school, they had a lot more credits that accumulated. So then finally, when I moved to California, I was able to skip a year of high school. And then what happened was there were 6 programs in the country. This was 30 years ago, that did a 6-year medical school and combined college program. This is the European system. It's how they do it in London. They take you right out of high school. They put you right into medical school, like intense training for 6 years. So I did that in Kansas City, Missouri. So I lived in Kansas City, Missouri. Yeah, when I was 15 years old, I moved there. And I became a doctor in 6 years. And I was 21, and I did my first surgery 21 years old as a doctor. Yeah.
That's insane. Well, okay, I've got to ask, what was the first surgery?
It was an appendectomy on a.
Okay, so nothing like crazy.
No.
I mean, they didn't have you like doing a quadruple bypass or something right away.
Although I have participated in many of those, that was a lot later in my career.
Yeah. That's so crazy, man. Like, I went through 6 years of this stuff in Kansas City while I was in high school, and then I did an appendectomy. I mean, if I were like so right, your story.
Yeah. I look back on it right now, and I'm like, wow, that was kind of crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. That's awesome. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, you're not your own doctor, and your story is so different probably than every physician that you've actually had caring for you in your life, so how do you reconcile that? Because I mean, I got a little bit of the same thing going on in my industry, but how do you reconcile that?
I feel like what happens with medicine is there's so much to know that when you become a doctor and you specialize in your area, like, I'm a surgeon. I've been a surgeon for 30 years. I recently retired from surgery. Now all I do is this longevity medicine. But you get really deep in one rabbit hole of knowledge as a physician. So, when I see other doctors, I know that they know their stuff just as well as I knew my stuff to do surgery, So that's kind of how we reconcile it in our brain.
I bet that's the case, and like coming from experience too, because I mean, I'm in cyber and I'm a CEO of a public company and everything. It's like sometimes too, when I hear people talk, I'm like, you don't know. You're trying to make it sound like but you don't know.
You hear a lot of that too, for sure.
Yeah, I bet, dude. That's every industry too. So it's not just medical, or my industry whatsoever. But it's interesting because I bet when you were 21, that's where I'm putting myself, is like in your shoes when you're 21, and you're being, you're getting like an annual physical or something like that. And the doctor you're seeing, and you're like looking at it, it's like, and you as 21 talking to the 6-year-old, it's like, you don't know. I can imagine, especially in your 20s. Let's be real, right, brother? In your 20s, you got a little more of an ego, right, than you and I do in our 40s and 50s. That's supposed to simmer down a little bit as you start to mature and everything. So back then, I'm sure it was a lot more of, for me, it was anyways. That was my experience. It's like, I know, you don't know, but I know.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like I feel like my 11-year-old son thinks he knows a ton more than I do
bro.
Right now, and it's so crazy how naive you are and how you grow older and you just understand that the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah, right on. But let's, I love our convo too, man, because let's, the direction this is going. on the inverse of that, though, let's take an example like Barron Trump, right? On the inverse of that, you take a look at somebody who is, our now president, Donald Trump, and looks at his son who's 18, and his son's like, Dad, you got to go on Rogan. And it's like, he's starting to say, like, these are the things you need to do, Dad, in order to campaign, because this is how my generation is going to hear the message. And I think to the medical field too, it's like, there's so many new things, or I think to the technology field as well, there's so many new things.
Right.
And the only way that I can keep up, right, is if I'm asking people that are fresh, right, that are 20 plus years younger than me. It's like, what'd you learn today? Well, what's new? Can you show me how to do this, please?
You're absolutely right. And, I think what happens is, as you spend a lot of time in your career, you end up thinking that the way you're doing it is the way it's supposed to be done over and over and over again, where in reality, there is revolutions happening, and the younger people are seeing it, And so like a perfect example is in medicine right now. Obviously, the older generation of doctors is looking at AI and they're thinking, there's no way AI is going to replace us. Dude. And the younger generation of doctors like, AI has already replaced you, dude.
Yep.
You got to figure out how we're going to do this differently so you still maintain some relevancy.
Totally. I mean, I'm seeing, I read all the time. That's how I consume. That's my morning routine, actually, is my morning routine. I will consume so much data, through current events and just, articles that I'll read. But I mean, even obscure publications, and I see things like that to where it's like, oh, somebody totally diagnosed themselves with a rare disease today using AI that 17 doctors missed.
Yeah.
And they're learning how to use it, and people are starting to diagnose themselves. But same with legal, right? One of my general counsel for the company, right? 45-year trial lawyer, a litigator. And he says, like, AI is going to replace me. And I'm arguing with him. I'm like, dude, no way. Your brain is so strategic. It's like, I cannot see AI replacing you. And then sooner or later, it's like, I just settled a case of my own using AI by itself and fired a lawyer in New York.
Wow.
Litigator. I spent 30 minutes on it. I could have saved myself 7 weeks of this negotiation between these two things, and I got it taken care of just all by myself. So I can totally see that, man. But this is a good way to take the convo, right?
Yeah.
AI, right? You were a surgeon for so many years. How could that apply?
It's already been applied. So, we've been using robots in surgery for about a decade now.
Yeah.
These robots are controlled by doctors, remote control, kind of like playing a video game. It's actually really cool.
Yeah.
However, just recently, an AI did an entire surgery using a robot.
AI did
the entire surgery, beginning to end, utilizing a robot. And so this has already happened, and it's only V1 of this, right? I mean, you fast forward 5 years.
That's a good point, dude. Yeah.
V3, why would you want a human doing your surgery when the robot can do it with much more precision and have the knowledge of thousands of other surgeries being performed all over the world in its AI brain to know what the next move is, right?
That's I mean, I love that it's a lot of people are scared, right? And I even wrote a LinkedIn post today about DeepSeek, because that was just announced or rolled out over the weekend. It's crazy. $1 trillion in market cap loss from all these tech companies because they're like, how the hell did these guys do it for 6 million? And you're asking for, what was Sam Altman's thing? Like another 3 trillion in capital is what he's looking for. It's stupid, right? And there's got to be a middle ground somewhere. But writing about that, it's like, I'm hoping, that this does enhance the quality of life across the board. And I'm starting to see it that way. But it's also, I mean, I'm in tech, bro. And just like you in medicine, some of it's got to be a little shaky. When you look at it, it's like, I don't know how that's going to work out, but let's go for it.
Yeah, I agree. But I do think that, like what you just mentioned with DeepMind, right? DeepMind is it called?
DeepSeek.
DeepSeek, yeah.
Yep.
So really, my perception of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they basically found a better way to do things with better algorithms that utilized a lot less computing technology, right?
Bingo. Yeah.
And
because they were forced to.
Right, because they were forced to, right? This is human innovation at its best, right? And so what you're going to see in medicine is the same exact thing, right? We're trying to play whack-a-mole with every single disease, trying to turn it around. And what we need to do is look at what's going on at a cellular level, apply the tools that we have now that we didn't have before, specifically AI, and say, look, what's going on in the cell that we can affect at a protein and at a DNA level so that we never have a disease in the first place.
Yeah, right on.
And we're in that world right now, right? And so I think it's just a reapplication of the tools that are now newly available into new ways of thinking. And this is where I hope medicine goes, is like, let's stop playing the same game we used to play, which is play whack-a-mole with pharmaceuticals with every disease. And let's like really get down to how do we solve disease and aging once and for all.
Yeah, right. I can totally see your brain and how you transition from surgery over to longevity now too. Right. Yeah, after you explain it that way, it's like that's where your passion lies, man. Exactly. I love those kind. I mean, talking about consuming content, I love those articles too. I think it was sometime last week I saw a new Harvard study, and I love coffee, always have. Yeah. You know, and I loved the Harvard study from a couple years ago. It was like a 40-year-long study that said like the best amount of coffee to have during the day for longevity was like 3 to 4 cups.
Yes.
You know, and I used to do like 2 cups, but I remember that I was like, oh, I got to increase. Oh shit, that sucks. You know, you know, I was so crushed when I saw that. But then the new one was about like the time of day, and it was tying the time that you consume coffee to a decrease in mortality. You know, and that blew my mind too. It said those that consume coffee only in the morning, like right away when you wake up, you know, including breakfast, whatever, is like a 31% reduction in average mortality in age. And then they tested against, you know, placebo, obviously, which is non-coffee drinkers, but then those that drink it throughout the day. And throughout the day, there was no difference between them and placebo, but it was that morning. You know, it's like that stuff fascinates me, man. What's really got you gripped for longevity these days?
Yeah, you know, so one thing I will say about studies like that, and I'll talk to you more about what I'm really excited about longevity, is that you have to look at every study as one. There's one major overarching theme that you have to really focus on, which is that studies take the average of the thousands and the hundreds of thousand people that they're looking at, right? But we know is that every human is on a bell-shaped curve, right? The average is in the middle, and it's a bell-shaped curve, and your particular genetics, your particular gut bacteria microbiome,
which can change 3 times a year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to react differently to the same amount of coffee than someone in the average, right? And so really what I'm really excited about, which leads me to the answer to my question, is every single one of us having a personal AI telling us how every single thing that we're exposing ourselves to is affecting our bodies. So now we're not looking at these studies that take forever to come out and looking at the average human, of which none of us is really average, right? And now we're applying every molecule coming in to how it's affecting our system using monitoring, which is incredibly advanced now and is going to get even more advanced in the next 5 years.
Yeah,
and
all the way to an Apple Watch, I bet.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
Because every single one of us is an N of one. N of one meaning like a study with one participant, right?
I like that.
Right. And so an AI is the perfect scientist, PhD, in our pocket. I'm holding up my cell phone here. That could be our PhD, really analyzing every input and how is it affecting us. That's going to be the holy grail.
That's incredible, man. Yeah. You got to be so grateful, like to yourself, seriously, for starting as young as you did, because it's like I think my primary physician, who I had for 30 years, I think is what it was. He just retired at like the age of 72. You know, and I look at him and it's like he and I, for most people, it's hilarious because most people thought he had a horrible bedside manner. But he would hang out with me for like 20 minutes after my exam and we would just chat, dude. Seriously. I love it. And it's like you just know how to communicate with people. It's like, doctors are humans too. You know, then he would start to take naps during the day, like on the exam rooms. He'd pick out an exam room, as he got older. But I think of him and I compare him to you because it's like all of this cool stuff is happening right now. And I'm sure he went through the normal program, to where he really didn't start practicing truly until he was in his 30s. So it's like, could you imagine, seriously, like you're 51 now, could you imagine like 10 years from now and trying to grasp all the new AI stuff that was there? It's like, I think that you are at the perfect spot, bro. For real.
Yeah, I think humanity is at the perfect spot.
That's a good point.
Right? everything in every.
Thanks for one-upping me, by the way.
Sorry.
That was brilliant. I'll high five you.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, you see it too, right? Like every field, whether it be physics, whether it be medicine, whether it be even something as human as how we socially interact is changing exponentially every moment of time that passes by right now.
Yeah.
Never in human history have things changed so fast. I can tell you, last 5 years, medicine has learned more than it has in the last 150 years combined.
True.
You know, and that is what we've learned in the last 5
Thank
years.
God.
Yeah, it's going to happen in a year, next year, and then in a month, the following year. It's just exponential. And Moore's Law, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Moore's Law, Gordon Moore, CEO of Intel, predicted in the 80s that computer power will double every 2 years.
Bingo.
Well, we've blown through Moore's Law in the last few years, and yesterday's news, right? Yesterday's news blew through that.
Dude, it's insane. Yeah,
Right.
It's absolutely insane. Yeah, because
Exactly.
I mean, that's when you get into, when it's doubling every 2 years, that's also getting into compound, because it's not just, that it's you're talking exponential. I mean, that's literally that, I almost said square roots, which is the opposite way. That's it's the middle of the afternoon. Give me a break. Right. That's why you want to.
You need some coffee, man.
Yeah, I do. Seriously. No, I'm recognizing that because I just read that a couple of days ago. Seriously. And ever since I'm like, I'm only drinking in the morning now. I mean, it's like, I value my longevity, but I feel you. It's like my personal assistant brought an espresso like around 11ish today or something like that. I'm like, no. No. He's like, he looks like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I'm going to live forever. That's what's wrong with me. Yeah. But that compounding too, I can use a personal story on this, dude, because my dad passed, I was 16. It was 1995. It was CML and he had a Philadelphia chromosome. So not genetic. I mean, it is genetic, sorry, not hereditary. Right. It's not passed down. That chromosome flipped. Right. When he was conceived. Exactly. And I studied all this stuff like afterwards. That's really what got me interested even in medicine to begin with. I'm not a doctor, obviously, but I read a lot. And he, during that time period, he was on interferon to keep the white cell count low for a few years. But then the only thing we can do, because it will turn super acute soon, is to do a bone marrow transplant, and then it was a combination of a staph infection when his immune system was low and graft versus host. Yeah. That was the real reason why something happened. And it was 95, but then 7 years later, just 7 years later, there was a medication that was mass produced and released. I don't remember the name of it right now, but something that he could have just taken an injection, like once a week and lived an entire life. Yeah. No bone marrow transplant, no nothing. Right. And that was just 7 years. And we're talking, that would have been like 2002 now when that was released. Wow. Yeah. And here we are, you're talking about Moore's Law. How many 2-year periods since then when all the knowledge doubled? Because now it's 2025. That's the insane thing to me. Right. And I think this is true in a lot of industries, and I hope that's the case, because you talked about the robots, and I know I'm on like a grandson. I had a robotic surgery that started out as a robot when I had an almost death experience with a gangrenous gallbladder. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. They started with the robots, but then it was supposed to be 45-minute, all robotic, 2015, so 10 years ago now, and it ended up being 3.5 hours by hand. Right. Because of adhesions and all the stuff that they found that they just weren't expecting. Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm grateful, dude. I mean, coming out of that, because I went through, and I'm grateful for the medical knowledge. I'm grateful for Moore's Law, because going through that, nobody could figure out what was wrong with me for 8 months. Wow. I had weird symptoms, that just didn't make sense. Even like full body CTs, they just skip right over it. Everything looks normal, all of that, no real attacks. However, I almost died from it, and coming out of it, it's like I read so much and got so involved in medicine myself to try to figure out what was wrong with me. Coming out, it's like there's two great things that I think everybody needs in life, medically speaking. One is a chiropractor, to put shit back in place, right? And the second is a really, really good surgeon to take the bad shit out of you. That's it. Exactly. Beyond that, AI can do everything. Seriously. Yeah. No, I've taken out a lot of necrotic gallbladders myself, and sometimes you just need to
go from, the minimally invasive robotic method to just opening somebody and removing it,
Oh yeah. Surgeon was great, dude. Seriously. I mean, I'm grateful to him.
Yeah.
Same, but it was, but yeah, I mean, it's now that we're talking AI, I can use that as a joke from now on. It's like, chiropractor, surgeon, and AI. That's the only medical profession. Yeah, right on. So, longevity wise, because I'm interested in this. I mean, I'd love to live until the most possible age that I could. And even more so when I say live, I mean, actually be living when I'm 97, 102, whatever, rather than seeing someone who's just kind of held on and the Walking Dead for the last 20 years of their life. I mean, there's things that obviously I read, but it's like a lot of people are pegging the amount of muscle mass you have to being able to actually live life when you're older too. What are some big things, man, as we wrap this up? Because this has been high energy, dude. I appreciate you.
Yeah,
you're awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're talking about is making sure you maintain your health span, right? So lifespan is number of years you're going to live, which right now there's an upper limit of 115 to that. But no one wants to live to 115 being frail, like a little old man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wheelchair, unable to recognize your family. You need someone to take you to the bathroom. Like no one wants to live that life, right? So how do you maximize your health span so it matches your lifespan? I'd rather live 80 good years than spend the last 20 years in the wheelchair, and without my brain. So what I tell people, there's 3 or 4 really important things that every single person can do right now. You mentioned one of them, that is maintain muscle mass. We know for sure that if you maintain muscle mass, that you will maintain mobility as you age and decrease the risk of you falling as you age. Falling, believe it or not, takes out most 70 to 80 years olds more than any other problem.
It did my grandma. I mean, she was in her 90s, but still same thing. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
That's usually the event that takes people out. Now, what I will say on the muscle mass piece is if you are not doing some kind of strength training at least 3 times a week, after you turn age 35, and you actually want to start way earlier than that, then you are not going to have enough muscle mass as you get into your 80s and 90s. Okay, so it is an absolute necessity. And the workouts you do, they don't need to be long gym workouts for hours. At least 20 to 30 minutes. But you got to be training to failure. So that means you got to be lifting heavy enough so that you can't go past 5 to 8 reps.
Your arms are shaking. You think they're going to drop off of you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you got to lift heavy stuff. And
then, I'm with you. As a man or a woman, it's the same. Yeah.
Exactly. The second thing you want to do is there's a metric called VO2 max. VO2 max is the maximum amount of oxygen your body can use when you're exercising. Now, the VO2 max is kind of it's a test that you would take like an exercise laboratory, but it's highly correlated to your health span and your longevity. So you want to get that measured. And if your VO2 max is not at a level that is about better than 50% of the people that you're in your age group, you need to start adding some intense cardio to your everyday
interesting.
Life as well. Yeah.
So the cardio, I mean, obviously that would increase lung capacity, but it probably does something. I can't remember the name of the cells within your lungs and all that too. But
well, your alveoli are in your lungs, but the main thing it promotes your mitochondrial health. Your mitochondria are the powerhouses of all of your cells, right? So having a VO2 max when you're 50, you want to be over 50 on your VO2 max, but that's another key metric. So those are on the physical side of things. I would say the other part of things that I would have everyone consider highly is just don't die. And what I mean by that
is, dude, you're awesome.
So what I mean by that is there's about 4 things in big picture that'll end up killing most of us, right? We already mentioned falls, and that comes from decreased muscle mass. But then there's heart attacks. We know heart attacks is the number one reason that people end up passing away. So you want to be extremely proactive at seeing if you have blockages in your arteries. There's a test called the coronary calcium score that everyone needs to get when they're 40 and monitor that, and monitoring a blood biomarker called ApoB. So don't get a heart attack, don't get cancer. So cancer's biggest enemy is being diagnosed as stage 1. Do all your screening tests for cancers. Consider some advanced testing like full body MRI. That's getting a lot cheaper as well. And thirdly is Alzheimer's and diabetes. And I put those together because they're all different forms of poor metabolic health that lead to these. And so maintaining good metabolic health is really important as well.
That's awesome, man. I mean, you just gave me like a laundry list of things that I'm going to start scheduling here. Seriously.
There you go.
I mean, the muscle mass is there, but I like that you hit that because it's I mean, I don't do this often at all, but I mean, I build it, very well. I know exactly, but I don't do much. I was like, oh, how often do you go to the gym? I'm like, I don't. I do it at home with dumbbells.
There you go. That's
I do push-ups. I use dumbbells for squats, just body weight resistance. I have a bench, which I will do chest presses with, again, just with dumbbells, and I put on the majority of my muscle mass in my early 40s too. Yeah. It wasn't difficult when it was done consistently.
Right. Consistency is the key. It doesn't need to be some extensive, trainer workout for an hour and a half. It just needs to be even 20 minutes consistently every other day is fantastic.
Right on. So now the chest presses are like 50 pounds each, and I started coming out of the surgery too. I couldn't even do 10 push-ups, dude, coming out of the surgery. Now I do 150 as warm-ups.
Wow.
So it's a big difference, dude. I appreciate you, man. I want to stay connected, seriously, because
Let's do it.
We just dropped right into it today. I love it. I appreciate
fun
you.
Conversation. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Where can everyone find you? Is it just drshah.com?
Yeah, Dr. Shah, and that's spelled with an H at the end, not a W.com. My social media is at Darshan Shah MD.
Darshan Shah.
And those are the best places to find me. I have my clinic is called Next Health, next.health. If you want to look at it on the internet, www.next.health. And those are all my places.
I love it, brother. You're incredible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So great talking to you.